Preseason All-SEC awards are starting to come out, and one in particular, Auburn had a huge robbery and a massive surprise.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the book, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened, because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and let's get after it. Happy Thursday. We're going to talk about some preseason All-SEC award lists. Phil Steele, especially. Phil Steele primarily. Actually, it's only Phil Steele's preseason All-SEC teams that we're going to talk about. There's some ancillary notes that we can throw in from Athlon, but Auburn created a graphic for Phil Steele's preseason All-SEC list that had several Auburn Tigers on it. We're going to break that down. I think there was a big robbery, and then there was a huge surprise. Like, holy cow, where did this come from? But it's exciting. And then there's some stuff that's not so surprising, especially around Cam Coleman being first team, as he should be. So we'll talk about all that in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to Rhoback.com. Go to Rhoback.com, use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. If you want Auburn licensed gear, they got it. And you can save big in doing so. They're also going to be dropping some new Auburn items soon to get you ready for the season. Polos, hoodies, swimsuits, whatever you want, Rhoback's got it. So check them out. Show them some love. It's Rhoback.com. So let's jump in. So you got Phil Steele, who, again, this is very similar to Athlon. Phil Steele may be even more so popular than even Athlon's magazine, Lindy's magazine. One of those items that sort of signifies the beginning of football season, magazine season, where the magazines drop, which is still crazy that we still do those. I guess you got to go to like a bookstore, or I don't know where you go to actually get this thing. And I think you can subscribe to, and they send it to you for $20. But it breaks down every conference, and the SEC in particular, it gives out some preseason SEC awards. And Auburn had several make the lists. Let's see, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total guys make first through fourth teams in the SEC. There were a couple that I thought made sense, and then there's a couple that I thought didn't make sense, and one that was a complete robbery, and that was Keldric Faulk being third team All-SEC at edge. I'm seeing a lot of stuff, and I'm wondering if it's this position determination. I'm seeing even on his NFL profiles, he's being listed as edge. Now, I'm not sure if the NFL basically just says anybody that plays on the end of the defensive line is just thrown into a lump of edge versus how we may view it from an Auburn defensive standpoint, especially over the last several years, where your edge is more of your stand-up pass rushing, like full-on pass rushing guy, like your Kieron Crawford. Maybe he's not overly big, 6'3", 6'4", 240-ish, 250 pounds, but speed is mainly what you think about that. So I don't know if that's what's hindering him on this list or what, because he does technically play out on the edge, but he's more of a traditional, in my opinion, a traditional 4-3 defensive end. He's always going to play around probably close to 275 to 285. And he's got a good mix of power and speed. I mean, he had, I think, 7 sacks last year. So he's still able to get to the pass. He's still able to get to the quarterback. But the key thing here is third team All-SEC. Like, that means there's at least 2 guys ahead of him in the SEC, and you're talking about being a first-round draft pick. Now, if you look at the first-round projections, and there's two other SEC defensive ends ahead of him, or edges, or whatever you want to call it, ahead of him, or there's some freak freshman that popped up last year that's not draft eligible, then I understand. I don't put Dylan Stewart and Keldric Faulk in the same position. I think they could both be on the same preseason All-SEC first team defensive line. I think they could be preseason All-SEC second team defensive line. I don't get how he drops all the way to third. Like, who's ahead of him? The only other guy that I'm seeing mocks ahead of him is LT Overton from Alabama. But still, that's only one guy. I don't have the magazine, so I don't know what first team and second team are. If we had that, we could even go deeper. But regardless, I mean, Pro Football Focus has Keldric Faulk as the first SEC defensive lineman, period, coming off the board as far as draft prospects go. They have him as the number 16 overall prospect, and they do have him listed as edge. The only edge in front of him is Ruben Bain. Boy, we almost had a Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain should have been an Auburn Tiger. Ruben Bain from Miami at 12. There's no other edges. TJ Parker, but that's another. He's from Clemson. That's another ACC guy. So we're still not even talking about SEC prospects that are ranked higher than Keldric Faulk. I don't really know how that happens. See, LT Overton is the next edge closest to Keldric Faulk at 20 on PFF's top 50 NFL prospects. Let's see, let's keep going. Let's see if there's another. Tyreek Sapp. So maybe he's at 27. So I haven't seen the list, but maybe that's the two guys ahead of him. That'd be crazy to me. But I don't know. I think Keldric Faulk got robbed here. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more. He did kind of have spurts last year where he could kind of go unnoticed, but he has a gear that when he turns it on, he's the best player on the field, best defensive player on the field. So with this being his junior year, and this is, hey, you're getting all this draft love, and you know you got to turn it on if you want to confirm all that and end up being a first-round pick. Maybe he flips that switch and proves, at least feels still wrong. Then no, I'm a first-team guy. I'm not a third-team guy. Just hard for me to imagine two other guys in the SEC at their position that are better than Keldric Faulk at that particular position. And I don't know, again, I don't know if it's the edge criteria that's hurting it or what. But yeah, it's that's kind of a robbery to me. Massive, huge surprise. Like this is one, if you would have given me 100 guesses, I don't think I would have gotten it. I don't think I would have picked it. But second team All-SEC special teams. So I guess it's in the return game. Hold on, let me zoom back in. No, it says cornerback. Second team cornerback. Now I've seen it. I saw this on another list as him as a return specialist, but second team cornerback is Rayshawn Pleasant. Remember, Rashawn Pleasant is the guy you got late in the portal, in the spring portal from Tulane. Now, I think he could be a great player. But, obviously he wasn't here in spring, and there's not just been a ton of talk about him really behind the scenes as far as being a guy that's going to threaten for a starting job. You kind of feel like it's Jay Crawford and Kayin Lee. So I'm not that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one to me. Rayshawn Pleasant. I'm looking at another spot though. I'm looking at another spot. I wish I could see the whole list because I'm looking at another spot and it has Rayshawn Pleasant as a preseason All-American from Phil Steele on special teams. So I'm wondering if that was a typo on this graphic. I'm wondering if that's actually supposed to be special teams. It's got to be. Regardless, let's talk about both. Okay, if he's second team corner, that means he's ranked ahead of Jay Crawford and Kayan Lee because Kayan Lee was fourth team All SEC. I don't think there's many people that are expecting Rayshawn Pleasant to crack the starting lineup. Like I think that would be breaking news. I think that would be something we'd be discussing as a huge deal if that were the case. I don't think there's any way to even know that that's the case or that that's possible just because he has not practiced yet. I think it's got to be a typo on the graphic, and it has to be special teams because he is a pretty dynamic kickoff returner. He averaged over 35 yards per return on kickoff last year, and he did have 2 kickoff return touchdowns. He also had a 100-yard pick six, which to me is very similar to like a punt return or a kickoff return where you just kind of ad lib and maybe you'll get some maybe you'll get a hat on a hat block every so often. But for the most part, it's you having a head start and being able to navigate a lot of different players running at a pretty top end speed. Okay. So maybe Rayshawn can be a dynamic kickoff returner. That feels like something that Auburn's been lacking. Now, last year, a lot of that was due to penalties. But, I mean, can you remember where you felt like your kickoff returner? Now, I know kickoff returns are weird and you don't get a ton now just because, they kick them into the end zone and they have the fair catch inside the 20 gives you essentially a touchback. Like, I know they do all these things to kind of reduce the impact of kickoff returns, but it's been a while since I can remember a really good kickoff returner at Auburn. Rayshawn didn't do it a ton last year. He only had 13 attempts, but again, over 35 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns. So 2 out of 13 went to the house. It's pretty solid. If 10% or more of the kickoff returns go to the house, that would be phenomenal. I mean, typically, if you get 1 in a season, 2 in a whole season, you're excited. He had 2 out of 13 attempts, so that's pretty impressive. So maybe I think that has to be what that graphic meant. Surely they didn't rank. Surely Phil Steele did not rank Rayshawn Pleasant that far ahead of Kayan Lee and Jay Crawford. It had to be special teams. But that's a huge surprise regardless. He was honored as 4th team All-American special teams. Surely that's what he meant for the SEC. I mean, that's a huge surprise. That's not really something that we've ever talked about. The potential of Rayshawn Pleasant being a kickoff return specialist. Jeremiah Cobb's going to have a lot to say about that. But with Jeremiah Cobb taking more of maybe looking to take more of a running back role this year, do you expose him there on kickoffs versus Rayshawn Pleasant? You're pretty deep at corner. Could that be his thing where he's just your kickoff guy? It's not something we've thought about. It's not something that I've thought about. It's not something we've talked about on the show, but this has my wheels turning a little bit. Maybe you do take Jeremiah Cobb off kickoffs. It's not like he's been fine, but it's not like he's lit the world on fire on kickoff returns. Maybe you take the exposure away from him there and let him focus on being a running back. And Rayshawn Pleasant's going to be one of your kickoff return specialists. Phil Steele usually, I know I just banged on him for the Keldrick Faulk thing, but he doesn't miss very often. He usually knows what he's talking about, and it's mostly analytical versus, bias. So he may see something there. So that'd be fantastic if you have you stole a return specialist out of the spring portal. That's a huge impact. We seem to do very well at identifying game-changing talent in that spring portal, or at least guys that we need. We really evaluate that we need to fill a role. We do really well in the spring portal. So that would be something that would be an added bonus. No surprise at all. No surprise at all. And I'm thankful that he's getting the notoriety that he deserves. And that's Cam Coleman, first team. You basically go to all the different publications that do all SEC, Phil Steele, Athlon, doesn't matter. Cam Coleman's first team. And from some folks that we've talked to that are kind of behind the scenes watching these summer workouts and watching some of these player-led passing sessions and receiving sessions with the quarterbacks and stuff like that, it's very, very clear that Cam Coleman is just on a completely different level than anyone, and that includes Eric Singleton Jr. Just when you talk about overall size, speed, catch radius, and now you see a little bit more of the desire, I think is the word that has been used to describe Cam Coleman: desire, drive. So it makes total sense for him to be essentially unanimous almost across the board. Any publication that has any pull whatsoever or any notoriety whatsoever, they're going to have Cam Coleman. They have Cam Coleman as their number one wide receiver. Other honorable mentions on the list, you had Eric Singleton Jr., second team, which, look, you got Cam Coleman, first team, can't complain there. Ryan Williams is probably first team for everybody else. There's a couple other really good wide receivers, and then Eric Singleton, being second team. I think this LSU wide receiver room – I think this SEC wide receiver room as a whole is really deep. So being second team is not that much of a knock. And I will say this. It does seem like – I know we just talked about Rayshawn Pleasant, but it does seem like they put a little bit more weight or a little bit more value on you if you're homegrown. In other words, if you're still with the school that you committed to out of high school, they seem to give you a little bit more of a nod. So you got Eric Singleton Jr., second team, Xavier Chaplin, second team, which is understandable because there's a couple of offensive tackles that are also first-round projections. Caden Proctor, I believe, in particular, first team offensive tackle at Alabama. So that's understandable. We mentioned Rayshawn Pleasant. You got Connor Lew at third team. Kay and Lee, fourth team, seems a little low, but I'm sure there's a lot of freaks. There's a lot of freaky DBs in the SEC, so that's tough. And then Jeremiah Wright in there, fourth team offensive line. That's interesting to me that he made it over maybe over our boy Dylan over there at left guard. And that's kind of I'm happy for Jeremiah, but I don't know. A little bit shocked that he made it in over some others. So, but regardless, good stuff there. Auburn being recognized kind of just goes to show how deep this roster should be, how talented this roster should be. this upcoming season. No matter how you feel about recruiting, that doesn't change who's on the roster right now. So, and wins are the most important thing. Wins are the most important thing. And one way to have a good shot to win a bunch of games is have a bunch of talented players. And Auburn seems to have a really good roster. So let me know what you think about the list. Did anyone surprise you? Is there anyone left off that you felt like should have been on? Or any of my takes on Faulk or Rayshawn Pleasant? You feel like I was off on that? Let me know in the comments. I typically respond to every single one. Guys, I really appreciate you listening. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow with another Friendship Friday. It's going to be electric. So definitely want to tune in for that. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.